The home opener for the Louisville football team is tonight. So on today's episode of the show, we're going to give a full breakdown preview of this matchup for the Cardinals against Murray State. So with that being said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Happy game day. You're listening to another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. As always, I want to take this time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder that the Locked On Louisville podcast is free on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. We haven't done much of a preview of this matchup against Murray State, so we're going to dive into a full preview discussing what is at stake versus the Racers, a segment that will continue on throughout the season. Keys to the game, players to watch, and then in the final segment, we will deliver final thoughts and predictions. So, obviously, we haven't done much preview at all. We haven't had one segment discussing Murray State entirely, with it being a short week, with Murray State being an FCS team. Look, this isn't meant as disrespect toward Murray State, but this is a game Louisville should win, and they should do it pretty handedly. So there hasn't been a lot of talk about this matchup. We've recapped the game against Georgia Tech, and then with it being a Thursday matchup, it just makes for a tough scheduling, makes for a tough scheduling situation. But nonetheless, we're going to take this episode and really dive into this matchup. And ahead of every matchup with every opponent on Louisville's schedule, we begin the discussion by answering the question, what is at stake versus insert team here? For this, it's the home opener matchup against Murray State. Now, granted, on the surface, Louisville is favored by over 40 points in this game against an FCS opponent. Louisville has defeated Murray State in the past 6 or 7 matchups in a row. There's not much to gain from this victory. Now, if you lose, obviously, it's a whole different discussion we're having. And I don't expect Louisville to lose. And even if you don't win handedly enough, now obviously that is very opinionated, but you at least have to handle business. So it's a matchup to where there's not much to gain outside of another notch in the win column, which obviously is great. But you still have something to lose, whether it be losing the game or just not playing the way that you need to. What's at stake versus Murray State? You can look at this both on and off the field. On the field is you're looking to improve off of a pretty lackluster first half against Georgia Tech, to where in that second quarter, your offense struggled, your defense couldn't get a stop. Now, granted, you looked better overall on both sides of the field in the second half. But still, it wasn't the prettiest performance, but a win is a win. But now it's hard to have concrete takeaways from a game like this Murray State contest, because it is an FCS opponent. If you go out there and you win by 55 points or so, there's not much to take away from that. But if Louisville were to come out and some of the same offensive struggles happen again, defensively gives up big plays to Murray State, and they are able to score some points before starters do get pulled, I think that, it doesn't offer a lot of encouraging optimism going into that Week 3 game against Indiana. So really what's at stake here is just making sure you handle business. I think that everything is in place for Louisville to dominate this game. Even though there were some offensive mishaps, especially in that first half, didn't necessarily capitalize on red zone attempts, dropped passes, chemistry issues between the quarterback and the wide receiver, missed throws, whatever may have you. This team still had almost 500 total yards of offense, scoring almost 40 points against Georgia Tech. So on the surface, it looks like it's obviously a little better than what Louisville fans are saying. But I do think that this is a game to where, you can get your confidence back, get your swagger back, put points up on the board while also just kind of working through some of that rust. So I think on the field, like I said, not much to gain. There's a considerable amount to lose if you put yourself in that situation. But, Murray State comes into this game 1-0. They beat Presbyterian in the opening matchup 41-10. Now, granted, 2022 wasn't a great season for the Racers, but still, Murray State looking to turn things around. With that being said, I think that there's some stuff at stake off the field for Louisville as well. Look, there has been a ton of juice that has been pumped into the program via the fan base since Brom's gotten hired. There has been this narrative that the hiring of Jeff Brom has, gotten the fan base reinvested. A lot of people were checked out, in December when Scott Satterfield was still the head coach. But with the return of Jeff Brom, the increase in season tickets, there's been a lot of hype around the program from the fan base saying that this is the hire that the fan base needed to rally around. And there's just been a lot of big talk from the fan base. Now, this is an opportunity to put your actions where your words are. I understand that, not many, there are situations that prevent people from going to games, and I understand that. But I also feel like overall, this Louisville fan base does a lot to make excuses as to why they can't come to games. Saturday at noon. Well, it's too early. Okay, well, here's a night game on Saturday. Well, it's too late. I've got plans on the weekend. This is my day off. Okay, here is a weeknight game. Well, it's a school night. It's a work night. I can't go. Look, I understand that some aren't financially able to attend games, and there is no shame in that, and it is what it is. And I understand that, and some people have other obligations. Some people just can't go. However, there is a good amount of this fan base that simply just does not go and finds any excuse to not go. And we see that with the basketball attendance on an annual basis, that the fan base will show out to games. But to get to this point of where the fan base is at now, looking to take that next step forward as a fan base, saying that, oh, well, we're rallying around this hire. Well, I think that this season opening game against Murray State offers you an opportunity to put the money where your mouth is. Because if tonight rolls around, 7:30 kickoff, and the stadium is half full, it kind of is counterproductive to this whole trend that has been talked about. It's counterproductive to this narrative that the fan base is going to come out in ways that they never have before, with attendance records and things of that nature. Now, I know that a season ticket sales are higher than they have been in quite some time, and that's great. But I don't care if it's Murray State. I don't care if it's Alabama. It's the home opener. If this fan base wants to get to a position to where they are able to reach that next level, you have to start consistently coming to games regardless of the situation. Year one of a coaching change. Jeff Brom is back home. If you can, please come to the game against Murray State. But like I said, I think that there is a lot at stake for the fan base as well as the Cardinals on the field. So assuming that the Cardinals take care of business here against the Racers, there's not much really to gain from this matchup, other than getting another win in the win column, which, make no mistake about it, is definitely great, and it 100% for sure defeats the alternative. But, even if you don't lose, if you come out and have sort of a performance that isn't inspiring, I think that it continues to fuel the it continues to fuel the doubts heading into that matchup against Indiana. So, but I want to talk about this matchup more specifically. We'll talk keys to the game, players to watch here in the next segment after we talk about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Create your profile, add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to it to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools at your disposal like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire, because let's be honest, adding that right team member is such a pivotal decision to create that positive impact on your business. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, heading on into the second segment of the show of this full preview episode on game day. Louisville hosting Murray State in the home opener tonight, 7:30 kickoff time against the Racers. Keys to the game, what I'm hoping to see from the Cardinals and some players to watch. First of all, I think what I'm hoping to see from Louisville in this game, simply put, is handling business. Putting points up on the board and dominating a team that you are supposed to beat by a good margin. I think handling business is a key here because, like I said, it beats the alternative. It's tricky because there's not a lot to gain, but there's a good amount to lose. So you want to handle business. I think handling business looks like converting in the red zone. Not turning the ball over, limiting penalties, which those two things Louisville didn't really do. They had one interception at the end of the first half in the Georgia Tech game, which was sort of a desperation throw from Jack Plummer, but there weren't many penalties either. Limiting the big plays defensively. I think for me, that's where I'm starting to look at and say, okay, we saw what you were able to do against an offense that had some potential. Now you go up against a Murray State offense that they won 41-10 last week. And it's hard to judge things based upon one matchup, but Murray State didn't necessarily do a great job of throwing the football. They had some big-time plays. Taylor Shields had 2 touchdowns for the Racers, 51-yard long, 51-yard touchdown there. But also, they ran the ball well. 44 carries, 231 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Louisville did a really good job of defending the run against Georgia Tech in the second half. I look for them to do the same thing here against Murray State. They will be going up against a 502 native. Jawan Northington is a sophomore, ran for 310 yards and a touchdown last year, played at Manual High School. So he is a player that could be one to watch for in that Murray State rushing attack, but Quadarius Jennings is the other running back to focus on. So overall, I think that handling the things that you're supposed to handle, limiting the big-time plays, that's the main thing for me, especially on defense. Getting after the opposing quarterback, getting those sacks, quarterback hurries, forcing a turnover or a couple or 10 or 15, however many they feel like forcing tonight. But overall, I think that it's a matter of – I understand that if the backups come in the second half and Murray State does score some points here and there, look, I get that. But especially in that first half, I look for Louisville to handle business, get off the field on third down, stay composed, and limit penalties. And get after the opposing quarterback and defend the run well. So overall, just doing what you need to do. And then offensively speaking, we saw the red zone offense really struggle in the first half last week. Look for when the Cardinals do get in the red zone to get touchdowns rather than just field goals. But another thing that I'm looking at is I want the chemistry between Jack Plummer and the wide receiving core to improve. I want the timing to improve to where Jack Plummer is throwing the ball at the break of these routes when the receivers create that separation and you start to see that camaraderie build on the field. That's something that I want to see, is the connection between the quarterback and the wide receiving committee. I also want to see the tight ends get involved as well. A tight end did not catch a single pass in that matchup against Tech over the weekend. So that's something that I'm looking at. And then Louisville to continue solid offensive line play. Look, I think they're going to run the ball pretty well. I think Jawar Jordan's going to have a big evening. But I could also see guys like Maurice Turner, Isaac Garendo could also play a key role as well. So for me, keys to the game are essentially just handling business at this point, doing what you're supposed to do, a lot of the same keys as last week. But this is where it gets a little tricky. You talk about the players to watch, because if Louisville has a big halftime lead, you're going to see Braum and company start to substitute some of the backups in to keep guys fresh and pull some of the starters early on. So a couple players that I'm interested to see in this game, particularly just kind of going down the line here. Offensively speaking, there's two players that, and honestly, I'm not even sure if they're going to play a ton, but I want to see what Jamari Johnson does against Murray State. I want to see how much playing time he gets. I want to see if he has a role in the passing game, and if he does, how large of a role will it be? And also, the other player to watch is whoever relieves Jack Plummer at the quarterback position, whether that be Brock Doman, Pierce Clarkson, Brady Allen, Harrison Bailey, Evan Conley, whoever it may be. It's probably going to be Brock Doman, but at that time, I want to see how good the backup quarterback looks in relief of Jack Plummer, because, you can't really focus much on this game as it relates to takeaways, but if the backup quarterback comes in and plays well, and let's say Plummer struggles week 3 against Indiana, well, then you might say, hey, look, we can go with the backup quarterback here. Like I said, all hypothetical, but the backup quarterback, whoever it may be, and Jamari Johnson. Defensively speaking, I was going to go Stanquan Clark, but I went with Clark last weekend, so I don't necessarily want to have consistency in that regard. But going down the line here and thinking about who could play a solid role and who I'm interested to see play, I want to see, there's really two guys, and they're both, younger in the grand scheme of things. Adonijah Green, the true freshman, had one tackle in the matchup against Georgia Tech, the 6'6" native of Ellenwood, Georgia, one of the highest rated recruits in the 2023 class for the Cardinals. I'm interested to see how he does for the defensive line, how he's able to get after the opposing quarterback, and just overall what he's able to do on the field, defending the run as well. I think that having quality pass rushing depth is something that Louisville has at their disposal this year, but I'm interested to see how it relates to this game in particular, because he could see a good amount of time. The other player that I'm looking at is, take a guess. I'm going to go back to the front seven here, and I'm going to go with Antonio Watts. When Ben Perry got ejected on that absolutely BS targeting call last week, a couple players stepped up. TJ Quinn stepped up. Jalen Alderman stepped up, but also Antonio Watts. Watts had one of the 2 tackles for loss for the Cardinals. He was tied for third with 4 overall tackles, 3 of them being solo. The 6'2" sophomore is seeing his first action for the Cardinals in his career. I thought he had a solid debut this past weekend, had a couple of pretty violent hits that I was impressed with. Now I'm looking to see how much of a role he's going to play moving forward the rest of the season, because I think that he is going to be a guy that could play a pretty solid role for this team. I think he's going to get a good amount of opportunity in this matchup against Murray State and could be a candidate to possibly lead Louisville in tackles against the Racers. So he, along with Adonijah Green, are my two defensive players to watch for here in this game. So a lot of players could obviously fit into that discussion as well. But to conclude the show, we're going to deliver final thoughts and predictions. Before we do that, I want to talk about our friends and the title sponsor of the show, Gametime. It definitely applies to an episode like today. If you are looking to still get tickets for this game against Murray State, or if you're one of those people that waits a little bit longer to get tickets, there are still a ton for the matchup at Lucas Oil Stadium next weekend against Indiana. That is where Gametime comes to play. If you're trying to find those tickets last minute, Gametime is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for not just sports, but music, comedy, theater, etc. Killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over tickets. Go to the Gametime app, and you can see all of the events in your area. It is absolutely amazing with the flash deals they have, last-minute tickets, etc., so on and so forth. It is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. This is the way to go. The Gametime guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and same row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Final segment before the Week 2 matchup against the Murray State Racers in the home opener for Louisville. The Cardinals over 40-point favorites against the Racers. Will they cover? That is the question. I think it's going to be close because, I mean, Louisville could definitely cover. But when you talk about a team winning by 40 points, you know, all it takes is a couple garbage time scoring drives to really throw a wrench in that. My prediction for this matchup, I am going Louisville. I kind of went back and forth here. I'm going to go Louisville 51. Murray State 10. I think that the Cardinals are going to score early. I think that big plays are going to be all over the field in the first half for the Louisville offense. The Cardinals wide receiving core is going to be able to create separation, especially downfield. I think that the chemistry is going to be there. Jack Plummer is going to build that confidence up, and we're going to see some big-time offensive drives. I think for the most part in the first half, the Cardinals' defense is going to handle business. Now, granted, when players start getting relieved halfway through the game and into the fourth quarter, I think that that's where we might see Murray State score, I think 10 points in my opinion, which I mean is pretty acceptable. But 51-10 is my prediction for the Cardinals. Leading the team in receiving yards, in my opinion, will be, I'm going to go Kevin Coleman Jr. here. I went with Coleman last week. I think he's going to be the guy to lead the Cardinals in receiving yards off of a couple big-time catches downfield. Overall touchdowns responsible for outside of the quarterback. This is one to focus on. I'm going to go with Jawar Jordan here. I think that this is the week where we see him score multiple touchdowns, scored the 74-yarder against Georgia Tech. I think that we're going to see him score early on. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, most sacks will be, I feel like it's lazy to go Ashton Gelati here, but I think that this is the game where he really breaks out. Georgia Tech could not guard him one-on-one last week. They had to almost double-team him, and I think that he's going to lead the team in sacks this week. Overall tackles, this is one to focus on here as well. I'm going to go with Ben Perry. I think that he is going to be playing with a fire after getting ejected from a BS targeting call last week in the first half, and he's going to be all over the field. I think that he is going to lead the Cardinals in tackles this week against Murray State. Like I said, I'm going to go 51-10 here. This is an opportunity for Louisville to continue the offseason momentum heading into week 3. The Cardinals have not started out 2-0 since 2017 when they defeated Brahms, Purdue, Boilermakers, and then North Carolina in the second week on the road in Chapel Hill. So they're looking to break that streak of early season losses. And I think that they're going to do it. And we will obviously discuss the result on the episode on Friday. But that's going to wrap up this episode of the show. Make it out to L&N Stadium tonight. It is a blackout, so wear your black attire and cheer on your Cardinals. Stay for the whole game. When the fourth quarter opens up, that doesn't mean you have to leave. But everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here.